name's Stephen Labiak. Welcome to week 7 about bankruptcy. This week we're going to talk about one of the causes of bankruptcy, which is student loans. Where do student loans come from? Well, people say, I need to go to college. First question I'd ask on the college is, do you need to go to college? Well, probably in the 20 years since I've become an adult, college has become basically like high school. You go, you kind of hang out, maybe you learn something, maybe you don't. There's kind of two classical thoughts about what college should be. One is it should train you for a job. That would be more towards your hard sciences, your engineering, your physics, things like that. You know, maybe even teacher education, things like that. The other one is more towards a classical education, your liberal arts, you know, to study the classics, Shakespeare, Whitman, whoever you want to throw into that pile, and to be able to basically learn how to write and just to be a general problem solver. I went through the hard science way. I'm an engineer by trade, spent 10 years in a factory, various positions, engineer, supervisor, things like that. Nowadays, it seems like you can't get a job as a secretary without having a college degree. Mistake I see a lot of people making as I see them come through the bankruptcy proceedings is, well, they took out $100,000 in student loans to get a $20,000, $30,000 job. You can get a $30,000 job working at a pizza place delivering pizzas if you include your tips. You don't need a college education for that. You need a driver's license. Some states probably don't even need a driver's license nowadays. So decide what you want to do first, maybe before you go to college. Well, maybe say, well, I want to go to college so I can figure out what I want to do. You know, spending $25,000 a year that you're borrowing to figure out what you want to do may not be the best investment of money. $25,000 a year somebody gave me, I can start a business, and maybe you should be doing that instead. Understand about financing a college education. Those student loans are not going to be discharged. You hear the term extreme hardships discharge them in bankruptcy. That doesn't happen. Be a million, one cases filed, maybe 60, not 60,000, not 6,000, 60 will be discharged to hardship. You better be a paraplegic, unable to move before you're getting that student loan discharge. So, should you go? How should you pay for it? Well, the best thing to do what I did. Get a job while you're in school. Nowadays, well, I can't find a job. Well, look at our last week's program. That's my advice on getting a job, but get a job waiting table. I had 7 jobs in 1 year. Not all at the same time, but I was working 3 jobs at the same time to be able to put myself through school. When I exited school, I only owed $1,000, and that was all on one credit card. Easy to pay off. Second trick about college is you need to have a plan to do it in less than 4 years. Most people nowadays are taking 6, sometimes 7, 8. Even if you're spending $25,000 a year times 8, that's $200,000 you're going to owe. Versus if you would have gotten out in 4 years, you just saved $100,000 right there by, putting your nose to the grindstone. And instead of, partying all the time, enjoying the rock wall, the swimming pool, you got through school. Speaking of through that rock wall and swimming pool, guess who's paying for that? That's you. Pick your school based on what you want to do, not necessarily on the amenities it provides. I'm not going to sit here and deny that there's not a value to go into Harvard and Yale because of the name. But realistically, most of us, myself included, aren't going to go there. And when you get out in the real world, nobody cares where you went to school. Nobody cares what your GPA is. It matters what you can do. The smartest person on the planet who has all the book smarts in the world, if you can't perform the job your boss has, they don't care what grade you got in school or where you went to school. They care whether you can do the job and ultimately whether they can make money or not. Most good employers will figure that out in a couple weeks. So when you're looking at schools, look for value. Your state-run universities generally provide a good value. Used books, electronic books, find out if you even need the books. Google is great. You can go online, read parts of the books without having to pay for them. Sit in on the class. Sometimes I skip books, and this is an engineering class. The books were $100 a pop. 20 years ago. Still probably $100 a pop. Maybe 200 at this point. So, but do you need the books? Do you need the class? It may be fun to take anthropology. I know I did, but ultimately I ended up wasting 6 months out of my life, and a couple $1,000s on tuition, maybe $1,000 on books. I could have been making $20,000 on that 6 months instead of just mess around with classes I didn't need. So, stick to focus to what you need to learn if your objective for college is to get a job. If it's not, if it's just to learn, fine. Stay there and learn, but understand you're going to be putting yourself into a lot of debt for something that's not going to pay off. Talk most about traditional college. They talk about for-profit colleges. Well, the difference between a for-profit college and a not-for-profit college is just who's getting the money. whether you think for-profit is bad or not, I'm going to be honest with you, if I wasn't getting paid at the end of the day, most of us wouldn't work, myself included. So we all do something for a profit. For-profit colleges happen to have somebody at the end of the day, an investor getting the money, versus maybe a not-for-profit college. Well, when the president's making $500,000 and he's getting, his housing paid for and a living expense and a vacation expense and a parking slot and a driving expense and who knows what expense, that's where the profit's going. They're just consuming it and running the business. Versus maybe you went for-profit college, maybe the president's only getting $100,000 and they're giving the rest to shareholders. You can decide whether profit or non-profit makes a difference. At the end of the day, somebody's making money on it, and that's okay. But just understand, in that respect, there's no difference. Now, when you see these trade schools, you maybe end up spending $20,000 a year for a couple of years to become a chef. Honestly, you're going to be making $10 an hour out of coming out of that school. Do you really want to spend $20,000, $40,000 to make a $10 an hour job? Just go apply to that job directly. You don't need anything they're going to try to teach you. Look at the if the point of you going to school is to get a job, look at the prospects of the field you're entering and whether the education makes sense or not. You hear nowadays employers complain they don't have the right skills. You can go to college and learn how to solve problems. Yet if you want to go apply for a job to be a welder, well, you have a problem to solve, and that's just how to weld. But if you don't know how to weld, I don't care how smart you are. At the end of the day, you don't know how to weld, you can't do that job. I always like to joke when I talk with people and they say they know how to build things. I always ask them if they can weld or not, because quite frankly, I always see jobs for welders, and that seems to be the one skill there's just never enough of. And if it's something you know how to do, you can get a very well-paying job, whether you have a college education or not. Same can be true, say, of plumbers, of other types of trades. Because you work with your hands doesn't mean you're any less intelligent or you don't know how to solve a problem. You just work with your hands. And you generally don't need college for that. Good apprentice programs, sometimes through unions, sometimes just through, or maybe learn through automotive. Get trained in doing that. You can make a very good living. It has nothing to do with school. It has everything to do with what you can provide to the employer versus where you came from. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on what I think about colleges and how to pay for them. Whatever you choose to do, don't choose to go in debt. Do your best to pay for it as you go. And look at the results of what that education is going to bring to you and understand your goals coming in and your objectives going out. If you have any questions about this or anything else bankruptcy related, debt related, feel free to give me a call, 559-274-2868, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.